Hello friends and welcome back. I hope you're all doing well by God's grace. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Let's start. I chose you, Robin, and they will never forgive us for it. Her hand trembled as she set down the paper. Even when he said he loved me, he resented me, she whispered. And they, Janelle, Christine, Mary, they hated me for it. But I didn't ask to be chosen. She glanced up, her eyes meeting the judge's now. I didn't want to replace anybody. I wanted to belong, but instead, I was the reason that it all came crashing down. Gasps moved through the courtroom. A reporter or someone in the gallery scribbled energetically. Janelle's attorney rose to object, but hesitated. Even he was not certain. The judge merely waved a hand and indicated to Robin to go on. I remember the night Kody told me he couldn't keep pretending. Robin said he sat at our kitchen table holding his head in his hands and said, "Robin, I think I'm done trying. They hate me. They hate us." A sharp breath was heard from the gallery, possibly one of Janelle's daughters. He became a non-husband the day he began to favor. Robin continued, brushing away tears. And that favorite was me, unasked for. She glared at Kody, who stood with his eyes averted in shame. Do you have any idea what it's like to be blamed for everything? To be called manipulative, controlling, a home wrecker? I simply wanted love, a home, a dad for my children. Her tone turned cold, but the cameras never caught the center of the late nights I lay alone in bed. The times I pleaded with him to call and see how Janelle was. The messages I texted him during holidays when he decided to stay home rather than visit the other children. She raised another letter. I see the pain that I am causing, but I can't quit. I want peace, but all I feel is guilt. That's Kody, she said. That's the true him, not the man you see on TV. The man who cracked under the pressure of his own dynasty. Her face was wet with tears. Nevertheless, she stood firm. You believe I ruined the family. I didn't. I was just the only one standing when it fell apart. The judge inhaled deeply, her voice soft but authoritative. Mrs. Brown, what do you have to ask of this court? Robin nodded slowly, gathering herself. I don't want his money. I don't want revenge. I want the truth to be on record. That I tried, that I loved, that I sacrificed, even when I was hated for it, and that I will continue raising our children without bitterness, but with boundaries. She descended from the witness stand, her body visibly shaking. Kody stared at her with a face expressionless in shock. Janelle, as well, sat quietly, face unreadable, perhaps shocked, perhaps not affected, but something had unquestionably changed. As Robin took her seat, a tear rolled down her face, and for the first time, she didn't brush it away. She allowed it to fall, unapologetic. The courtroom was quiet, heavy. Kody dipped his head into his hands. A man not so much exposed, but broken wide open. The courtroom lapsed into uncomfortable silence. As Janelle Brown stood and made her way to the witness stand, she wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. No tissues clutched in her hand. If Robin was the storm of grief, Janelle was the calm before the blow. She sat upright, folding her hands neatly in front of her, and met the judge's eyes with an unwavering razor-sharp stare. Her composure didn't come from confidence. It came from pain hardened into resolve. Please state your name for the record, the judge requested. Janelle Brown, she answered plainly. And your relation to the parties involved. Spiritual wife to Kody Brown for more than 25 years, she stated. Mother to 6 of his children, and now activist on behalf of all of them. The judge nodded, encouraging her to start. Janelle leaned forward in a small smile. Let me be specific. This is not about money. This is about my kids. Her words struck like a hammer, heavy with pent-up anger. The boys needed a father. What they received was silence. You might sense the whole room get tense. Kody remained still, lips compressed to a thin white line. His knuckles were white with a tight grip on the edge of the table, but he said nothing. Janelle went on, voice serene but frigid. I'm not talking about missed dinners or late-night phone calls. I'm talking about birthdays forgotten, graduation skipped, illnesses faced alone. I'm talking about sons who had to become men without even a guiding hand or a simple "I'm proud of you."
She paused.
The emotion was there, but buried under years of disappointment. One of those sons is no longer with us. The air shifted in a second. Even the judge unconsciously moved in her seat. Garrison didn't merely die from grief. He died from abandonment. Janelle stated, her voice heavy with a tempest. She refused to let erupt. He reached out again and again. He asked his dad to visit him. He left messages that were not returned. He waited on holidays for the call that never was made. And when he passed away, Kody wept in front of the cameras, but my son never heard those tears. One sniff came from the audience. One of Janelle's daughters quietly wiped her cheek, not wanting to draw attention. Kody hung his head. He couldn't even meet her gaze. And now she asked, her tone slightly raised. Now he wants joint custody of my youngest kids. The same man who hasn't been home for Christmas in 3 years. The same man who hung out at Robin's place while the rest of us endured heartbreak after heartbreak. She shook her head. I'm not fighting for revenge. I'm not here to destroy Kody. I'm here because my children deserve protection. They deserve stability. And most of all, they deserve the truth. The judge looked toward Kody, who still hadn't moved. Janelle wasn't finished. We were raised on principles of unity. That's what plural marriage was supposed to be about. Sharing love, building strong homes, raising families together. She looked directly at Robin for the first time. But that oneness died the day Robin became the center of his world. And I don't say that to fault her. I say that because that's when my children were relegated to the periphery like they didn't count. Robin looked down, clearly upset. Janelle produced a printed text conversation and showed it to her attorney, who entered it into evidence. The judge read it quickly. Here's my son, Gabriel, Janelle explained, pleading with Kody to simply come over for his birthday. No response, nothing, not even a happy birthday. Her voice trembled for the first time. Do you have any idea what it's like to stand by and watch your children gradually come to realize their daddy's emotionally checked out of the building? She asked softly, to watch them numb up, not because they're resilient, but because they've been let down too many times. She regarded the judge, tears at last welling in her eyes.
But still, she didn't crack.
I won't have that cycle repeat with the younger children. I won't have them waiting by the window for a man who only appears when it's convenient for a narrative. They deserve more. There was a long silence. Then the judge spoke in a soft voice. Mrs. Brown, are you asking for sole legal and physical custody? Yes, Your Honor, Janelle answered. And I'd like a family therapist involved in any visitation arrangement. I don't want them harmed like their older brothers were. The judge nodded again and scribbled a note. Janelle rose to head back to her seat, but hesitated. She turned back for a final time. Yeah, I used to think we were creating a family. I thought love could be shared and multiplied. But I learned the hard way that love without commitment is just a promise waiting to be broken. She stood up, shoulders held high, not winning but unshaken. At her table, she took her daughter's hand. No words, only strength. Kody stared at her, but did not speak. He didn't have to. The harm was already done. The courtroom fell silent. Every eye turned to Kody Brown as he stood up slowly from his chair. The now hollowed out, once charismatic leader of a sprawling polygamous family looked more gaunt. His suit fit loosely on his body, and his face was lined, burdened by memories too heavy for any man to bear. For an instant he hesitated, not knowing whether to speak or merely spin around and depart. Then, however, he drew a breath, cleared his throat softly, and took one step closer to the judge. May I speak? He said quietly. The judge nodded. You may proceed, Mr. Brown. Kody shifted not to the bench, but to the courtroom crowd, to the 2 women who had spent decades of their lives on him, to the children who now gazed at him with hurt eyes, and then finally to the empty seat where his deceased son Garrison once sat. I failed, he whispered. I failed as a husband, as a father, and as a man. Gasps were heard, not because the words were shocking, but because they were truthful. I thought I could be everything to everybody. He went on. I thought I could have a family of 4 wives, 18 children, and find some way to keep everyone near, in balance and loved. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. His hands shook at his sides. Plural marriage wasn't so much a choice for me. It was a calling. Or at least so I thought. I felt like God had given me a mission. But now I realize it was an illusion, one I couldn't cope with, one I used to escape reality. He took a deep breath, visibly composing himself, and looked straight at Janelle. I separated myself from your children.
I opted for comfort over obligation.
Robin was my sanctuary, and I let that familiarity blossom into favoritism. That favoritism became the crack that shattered everything. Robin's eyes filled with tears as she listened from behind her lawyer. She wasn't being represented this time. She was seeing the truth untangled before her very eyes. I did not mean to leave anyone behind, Kody stated. But actions speak louder than words. The judge sat silently, taking nothing down now. This wasn't for the record. This was for the hearts in the room. Kody shifted slightly, speaking to the entire room once more. When Garrison died, a part of me died too. And I know what you're all thinking. That I wasn't there. That I didn't do enough. That I didn't say enough. And you're right. He fought to keep his voice steady. I read the texts. I listened to the voicemails. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to repair what I damaged, so I did nothing. He flexed his fists, attempting to stifle his shaking hands. I kept telling myself I was shielding Robin and the younger children, that I was keeping the chaos in control, but all I was doing was hiding from the mess, from the guilt for me. He glanced over toward the gallery where two of his sons sat, expressionless and far away. To my children, I don't anticipate forgiveness. I wouldn't forgive me either. I missed birthdays. I missed milestones. I missed your pain. I let you carry things that were mine to carry. There was a soft sob in the back row. One of the younger daughters buried her face into her sister's shoulder. And to you, Janelle, he went on, his voice gentle. You were the pillar of this family, the one who kept everything running. While I stood in the front pretending to be in charge, I pushed aside your strength. I ignored your sons, and I left you to tell me about my failures. Janelle, sitting up straight, was inscrutable, but her eyes sparkled, betraying a glimmer of feeling. Kody turned once more, addressing Robin. Robin, I leaned on you more than I should have. I pulled you into a spotlight you didn't ask for. I let you become a wedge. Even when you begged me to make things right with the others, you didn't destroy this family. I did. Robin put her hand over her mouth, tears running openly now. She had always been blamed for being the problem, but Kody's words pierced the decades of accusation. I allowed ego to take the place of empathy. I allowed religion to cover up responsibility. And when it got difficult, I pulled back rather than fixed. He faced the judge for the last time. I'm not asking for custody. Not until I earn the right to be trusted again. Not until I prove, through doing not talking, that I can be a steady, safe presence in my children's lives. The judge nodded slowly, visibly shaken. Kody let out a deep sigh, his shoulders slumping under the weight of all he just admitted. I know no court can mend what I've torn apart. But perhaps it can begin something new, something truthful, something rooted, even if that means I let go of control and just give healing. He took his seat, not as a man who had won or lost, but as a man who had ultimately spoken the truth. No applause, no criticism, only silence. For the very first time, Kody Brown didn't attempt to justify, didn't attempt to rationalize away the pain. He accepted it. And for that fleeting instant, amidst all that had gone down, the courtroom wasn't a battlefield. It was the start of something true. The last day of court dawned with gray skies and cold wind, nearly as if the weather comprehended the gravity of the moment. Inside the courtroom, the mood was heavier than ever. The witnesses had all been heard. The evidence had all been presented. What remained now was silence, and the judgment that would officially close this painful chapter. Kody Brown sat by himself at his table, fingers laced together, gazing down at the scuffed wood. Gone was the confidence that drove him on TV. What occupied that space instead was a man getting older, hollow, and depleted by the truth. Robin sat a few feet away, flanked by her legal team. She had on no makeup once more. Her hands were locked in her lap, shaking just as they were the first day. She didn't seem angry. She seemed drained. Janelle, stoic as ever, sat straight next to her attorney. Her daughters were on either side of her, quiet, unyielding, and fierce. She hadn't spoken to Kody in days, and she wouldn't today either. The judge slipped into the room quietly, folder clutched in her hand, glasses perched low on the bridge of her nose. No histrionic pauses, no showbiz-style drum roll, just the dry tone of law slicing through tension like a scalpel. Having considered each document submitted, testimony, and conduct history, this court now makes a final decision. The room waited with bated breath. All residual property and community assets shall be distributed equally to said former names, except for assets protected in trust for minor dependents. A tiny exhalation of relief emanated from Janelle's side of the room.
Equity at last.
Robin Brown shall have sole legal custody of her children by Kody Brown with no intervention or joint custody requested at this time. Robin gazed down. Her face remained unchanged. Mr. Kody Brown shall receive 6 months of mandatory therapy and family counseling sessions prior to supervised visitation rights being granted. You could hear the murmurs. Even some in the gallery hadn't anticipated that it would be quite so drastic. In addition, the judge stated sternly, Kody Brown is to have no contact, written, electronic, or spoken with the children of Janelle Brown unless such contact is voluntarily offered by those individuals and sanctioned through therapeutic review. Kody closed his eyes. The chaos, the stillness in the room was not uncomfortable. It was holy because something had officially been over. Not only a court hearing, not only a union, but a dream. A dream that this family might go on as it had been. This ruling is effective immediately. The judge summed up. This court is now adjourned. The gavel came down, and suddenly the Brown legacy crumbled into legal conclusiveness. The room came to gradual movement. Lawyers stuffed folders. Security moved in to escort the public out. A few reporters started to mouth into recorders. But for those in the middle of it all, the world ground to a halt. Robin stood silently. Her lawyer spoke to her gently, but she didn't hear. Without comment, she picked up her coat and began to move toward the back door. Cameras loomed outside, but she glided by like a phantom. No words, no crying this time. Janelle stood for another moment. Then she stood, buttoning her coat as her daughters closed in around her. She didn't hurry. She didn't stumble. A reporter spotted her by the steps and asked, Janelle, is there anything you'd like to say? She hesitated. Just once. Then with clarity and poise, she stated, We're done surviving now. We start healing. The words weren't loud, but they were final. Inside the courtroom once more, Kody Brown sat alone. He looked at the vacant witness stand where Robin had wept, where Janelle had battled, and where he had confessed. So many words had been uttered in that chair. So many truths poured out that could never be collected again. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't angry. He was still with regret, still with memories, still with the echoes of birthdays lost, sons unheeded, and wives who had given him everything until there was nothing more to give. The courtroom emptied. The judge had long departed. Attorneys had filed out. Even the bailiff began turning off the lights row by row, but Kody stayed, gazing at that lone chair. It was merely a chair, but to him it was a cemetery of relationships, a monument to all that might have been. At last, the courtroom doors finally creaked shut behind him. Not merely on a case, not merely on a family, but on a legacy. A legacy previously established on belief, now destroyed by pride. A name previously renowned for love and togetherness, now wrapped in sorrow and apartness. Outside, life would continue. But within that room, in silence, a man sat alone, weeping over the very family he once felt would never fracture. Families aren't broken by miles, they're broken by silence. Kody Brown did not lose his wives overnight. Lost them one moment of inattention at a time. And when ego replaces love, all that remains is an empty courtroom and whispers of what used to. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button and join our YouTube family. Thank you for your support. New videos are coming very soon.